everybody. I'm Bonnie Squires. I'm the host and producer of Bonnie's Beat. We're coming to you through the magic of Zoom. Vince Celli, who was the station manager of Radnor Studio 21 and Mainline TV, is at the controls today, back at the controls. I'd like to feature people who are doing really important things for the community, whether it's academia or athletics or music or theater or nonprofits. Especially I like politics. And today we have a special person who is our guest, who is the chair of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, Dr. Val Arkoosh. Hi, Val.
Hi, Bonnie. It's so nice to see you.
I saw you on television so many times when you were side by side with Dr. Rachel Levine, telling us what was happening with all the COVID-19 cases. What was that like when you had to stand up there and talk about diagnoses and cases and deaths, unfortunately?
Yeah. Well, we are 46 weeks in here in Montgomery County, and your viewers may remember that we were one of the first counties in the Commonwealth to get cases of COVID-19 way back on March the 7th. It's just hard to believe we're coming up on a year. So those first weeks, we were doing nearly daily press briefings. We still do them once a week, and so they haven't stopped yet. But in those early days, it was so challenging because we just didn't know very much about this virus. And we were doing everything that we could to make sure that the public had accurate and factual information. And that was all taking place with the background of a very rapidly changing, evolving situation, one that was presenting enormous challenges to our community. So it was pretty intense. It was very, very busy. And I think one of the interesting things for all of us in the early days was that the county and our Department of Public Safety and our Office of Public Health, we routinely do what are called tabletop exercises or even full-out drills for various emergencies. And it could include a natural disaster, it could include an infectious disease outbreak, that sort of thing. But those tabletop exercises only lasted for a day or two or three. Nobody's ever really gamed out something that was now, will look to go on for a year. So
more than a year. It's more than a year already.
Yeah, now, not for us yet in the county, but it will be soon. And so just the enormity of that, as that started to sink in, that everything that we were doing, we were going to need to be doing it for a very long time.
And Rachel Levine, who had been the Secretary of Health, and then Governor Wolf promoted her and made her the head of everything medical. I don't even remember what her last title was, but she was just spirited away, or soon will be spirited away by President Biden to be the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services. So that'll be a loss for us, but a gain for the country. And she'll be the first trans person ever to hold an important position in the federal government. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I think she'll do a wonderful job there. And just honored that Pennsylvania is able to contribute to the administration in this way.
I'm on so many boards that have honored Dr. Rachel Levine in the past 6 months. Really, it's amazing. But she just always calm, cool, collected with all the nastiness that went on, stupid people that attacked her because she was a trans woman, transgender. And the LGBTQ community was absolutely ecstatic to have her at the forefront. And you were so respectful, as was Ken Lawrence, your vice chair. I don't know about Joe Gale. Joe, sometimes he's okay and sometimes he's not so okay. What can I tell you? He's been very quiet lately. He's lying low. Anyway, but I always like to let my viewers know about the background of the person I'm interviewing. Now, Montgomery County lucked out that not only are you a superb political figure, you're also a medical doctor, an OBGYN. Is that right?
Well, close. I'm actually an anesthesiologist, but my specialty was obstetrics. And so I spent most of my clinical days on the labor and delivery floor helping moms and their families. And it was work I really, really loved. And I think about a lot, it kind of keeps me grounded. It's always a good reminder for me of why I went into public service. And it was to help women and families that really often struggled despite their best efforts.
Now, Dr. Val Arkoosh, whom we claim in Montgomery County, started out in Nebraska, believe it or not. Tell us your background.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska.
How did your parents get to Omaha?
Oh, well, that's a story, Bonnie. That's a story. So my dad was born in Laramie, Wyoming. My grandfather was an immigrant and grandmother were immigrants to this country in the early 1900s, and they were actually teenagers at the time.
From where?
And they from Lebanon. And they settled out west. There were many Syrian and Lebanese immigrants that settled in Wyoming and Idaho, and they settled in Wyoming. And they got a little older. They met, they married. My dad was born in Laramie. And my dad was obviously the first person in his family to go to college. And he had a mechanical engineering degree, which was really quite unusual. When he graduated, it was at the beginning of the Depression, the Great Depression. But because of his education, he was able to get a job with General Electric in St. Louis. And he always told the story of how my grandfather took his last $100 out of the bank to buy my dad a train ticket and get him started in St. Louis. So my dad gets to St. Louis. He meets my mother there. My mother was born and raised in St. Louis. And the war starts. My dad joined the Army. And he was enlisted and he was going through basic training. And his unit was assigned to ship out to North Africa. And just a couple weeks before his unit shipped out, my dad was pulled from his unit, again, because of that mechanical engineering degree, and he was sent to Omaha, Nebraska to oversee the manufacture of weapons to support the war effort. So he took on an effort to help manufacturing companies convert their processes to make bullets and fins for missiles and all sorts of things that they needed to conduct the war. And so when the war ended, my dad knew everyone in the business community, and so he and my mom settled there permanently. And I have to say that his unit, for the most part, as was the case for many units that were deployed to North Africa, many people in his unit lost their lives defending America there. So it really feels like a little bit of a twist of fate that I'm even sitting here talking to you. I think it could have very easily gone another way.
Very interesting. What a lucky break for you and your family.
Yeah.
And for your father. Oh my goodness. Anyway, but you're a graduate of the University of Nebraska College of Medicine, but then you got a Master of Public Health from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And you spent time at my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania. You also did a stint at Drexel University's College of Medicine. How did you get so involved with Philadelphia universities?
Well, I moved out here in 1986, and I did that to do my internship at Presbyterian Hospital in West Philly, and then my residency at Jefferson Hospital. So I've been immersed in our medical community here for a long time now. And when I finished my residency at Jefferson, I loved teaching and working with residents and students. So when I finished my training, I joined the faculty at Jefferson. I was on faculty there for about 7 years after I completed my residency. And then I moved over to what is now Drexel, but at the time it was still Allegheny University of the Health Sciences. Mm-hmm. And a lot of your viewers might remember PCOM's old hospital right there in City Avenue. Right. There was a couple years where it was the Allegheny University Hospital for Women. And I was actually recruited to lead the anesthesia department at that facility because I had this expertise in women's health and particularly in obstetrics. So the Allegheny system sent all their obstetrics and gynecology and other women's health services to that location. So that was really fun. I got to be part of kind of opening up a whole new type of hospital at that location. And then the Allegheny bankruptcy happened in the late 90s. And so that changed everything. And we ended up having to pull out of that hospital. But after that, I was able to become chair of my department at Drexel and served as chair there for 5 years. And then after that, I moved over to Penn.
We have to talk about your wonderful husband, Jeff Harbison, who was also a political person. Was he the first one to get elected to office? Or
he was, yeah. He's actually serving in the 4th year of his 4th term as the township commissioner. So he's been politically engaged for a very long time.
And the township you live in is
Springfield Township.
We forgive you.
I'm on the other side of the river, Bonnie, but you know.
But you are in charge of all of Montgomery County, which is a big county. Where do we stand in size and population in all of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so with our most recent census numbers, we're around 831,000 residents here in the county. So we are the 3rd largest county in the Commonwealth. But I often like to share with people a kind of a fun fact about Montgomery County. We have a bigger population than 5 states. So I'm sorry, 4 states. So we have more people here in Montgomery County than the state of Vermont, the state of North Dakota, the state of Alaska, and the state of Wyoming, where, if you've been following this, my dad was born. So it's a big county.
And you could drive for hours. I mean, I think I've been to Lansdale once. It's so far away. You have to pack a dinner if you're going to drive there.
So back when we used to go places, it was not unusual for me to drive, on a short day, 40 or 50 miles, and not infrequently 75 to 100 miles. The county itself is almost 50 miles long in its longest axis. And I live, pretty far to the east, and Pottstown or Red Hill, Pennsburg, Green Lane, that area is, in both cases, about 48 miles away from my house. So put a lot of miles on my car. I actually bought an electric car just for that reason, because I was driving so much. I just thought it would be, better for the environment to be driving an electric car. So I have a Chevy Bolt, which is a fully electric car. That's pretty fun to drive.
What are you working on now for the whole county? Now that President Biden has been called as president, thank heaven.
Yeah. So still about 85% of my time is involved with our county's response to the pandemic. And that ebbs and flows a little bit, but for the last couple of weeks, it's really picked up again because of the vaccine rollout, which has been just a really tremendous undertaking. But, the county business still goes on, and we actually just yesterday made a couple great announcements at our commissioners meeting. One of them that I'm extremely proud of is that Montgomery County has about 30,000 acres of farmland, and we have now crossed the 10,000 acre mark. We have permanently preserved 10,100 some acres of our farmland here in the county, permanently preserved for farming. So I'm really proud of that. It keeps that open space. It creates opportunities for people to buy their food locally. And so importantly, it preserves such a wonderful way of life, which is the family farm. This country was built on family farms. And so I'm really proud of this work to be able to preserve that land. And then a lot of the other things that we do, we've continued to do. We've continued to fix our roads and bridges. We're moving forward on creating a county campus for the next 100 years. We're just about done putting a new facade on our main building at 1 Montgomery Plaza, and all that ugly scaffolding is finally coming down. And shortly, we'll break ground on our new Justice Center, which will be across the street. And we'll finally have a building big enough that all of our judges can have their courtrooms in the same building. Right now, we just don't have that much space. So a lot of good stuff is happening. A lot of very forward-looking projects underway.
Tell us the amount of the budget you supervise for Montgomery County.
So this year, it's close to $450 million.
Let's let that begin. $450 million for a budget. And it's not a budget like we need so much for groceries and so much for the gardener. It's a different kind of budgeting, right?
Yeah, it is. About 2/3 of that budget is, or not quite that much, but almost, definitely over half is health and human services related work. And so that's our Office of Public Health, which of course has been extraordinarily busy this year. Our Office of Behavioral Health, Drug and Alcohol, Veterans Services, our services to assist people experiencing homelessness, our Community Connections Office, which some of your listeners might be familiar with. That's our no wrong door into the county services. So you can always call Community Connections with really any problem, and they can help connect you to where you need to go. So that's a big chunk of the budget. The court functions is another big chunk of the budget. So the judges actually work for the state of Pennsylvania, but everything else that happens in the courthouse is the responsibility of the county and the county's budget. So that's a big chunk of the budget. And then there's everything that we do around our trails, our parks, our roads, our bridges. We have about 70 miles of roads in the county that belong to the county. And then we have about 130 bridges at this point. And many of them were in disrepair. When Josh Shapiro and Leslie Richards took office back in 2012, I think it was 67 of the bridges were considered structurally deficient. And now we have repaired about half of them at this point, and the remainder are either under construction or in planning stages for construction. So we've made a lot of really good progress on our infrastructure. We're very proud of that.
I'm glad you mentioned Josh Shapiro, because when Josh was chair of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, and then he was elected Attorney General of the whole state, you were appointed to fill his seat. Lucky for
Actually, I was appointed to fill Leslie Richards' seat when she became our PennDOT secretary under Governor Wolf when he was elected.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it had to do with Josh.
Well, and then Commissioner Lawrence was appointed when Josh left.
Okay. Yeah, Leslie Richards. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. She's now the general manager for SEPTA. So we're very fortunate to have her in that position.
I'm sure she's not so happy to be in that position. It's just unbelievable that the COVID-19 has impacted every single facet of society, every facet of our lives. Yeah. We'll have to refer to the January 6th insurrection and attack on the Capitol in Washington, D.C. It just broke my heart because so many times I was in that building, in the upper gallery where the press sat, covering Nancy Pelosi's. Each time she was sworn in, I made sure I was in Washington to document that. And I still have nightmares about what happened on January 6th, but something happened in Norristown a few nights ago, which was very scary. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, and I just have to add that the events of January 6th were just so disheartening, that Americans would storm their own Capitol, trying to stop our elected officials conducting the people's business, which was to certify an election that had been legally conducted, that had been challenged in multiple courts and not found to have any problems. It was really a real low point for this country, I think. Thankfully, that is behind us now. But yes, so the other night in Norristown, the Montgomery County Democratic Committee headquarters, the office, is right across the street from the courthouse building. Yeah. And in pre-pandemic times, at any given time of the day or evening could be filled with volunteers and staff, often high school or college students that were there helping out.
And
And
officials.
and elected officials, absolutely. And 3 bullets were shot through the windows of the headquarters there the other night. And thankfully, nobody was there when it happened, but there are 3 separate bullet holes in the windows. And I sure hope they catch who did it. The police do have the bullets. And because of its location, right across the street from the county courthouse, that area is under video surveillance. And so I'm hopeful that they might be able to see something on that video that would point to who the perpetrator or perpetrators were.
Do we have any word on who will replace Dr. Rachel Levine in Harrisburg?
We do. So Governor Wolf announced about an hour or so ago, maybe 2 hours now, that Allison Beam, who is I believe, was his deputy chief of staff, I think that was the correct title, is now going to be the Secretary of Health. And then because she is not a physician, we have a really interesting way the Secretary of Health's office is set up. If the secretary is a physician, as Dr. Levine is, then it stops there. But the secretary is not required to be a physician. And so if the secretary is not a physician, then a physician general is also appointed. And so the governor also appointed another woman to fill that position, who is a physician. So he made 2 announcements today.
That's interesting because in the Inquirer this morning, they had 2 op-eds. One that said, you have to be a doctor, and one that said, no, but you must know public health. And I suspect that Dr. Rachel Levine was both, which is why she's going to Washington, D.C. right now. But he didn't let any time pass. Good for the...
Well, I'm glad he didn't, because this pandemic doesn't let any day go by without wreaking havoc here in our Commonwealth. So, the governor really did have to move quickly on this, because our health, that office just can't be without leadership right now.
I don't leave my house because I have asthma and I'm scared to death of the COVID-19. And I've become a whiz on my computer of ordering groceries and food deliveries from restaurants. But I'm here with my 2 pussycats. Luckily, Chewy.com delivers their food once a month, and they're happy to have their mommy with them 24 hours a day. My husband got stuck across the ocean when everything shut down because his father had died, and he went to Tunisia to bury his father. And because Tunisia also has, every country in the world is dealing with the coronavirus. So he can't get on a plane, can't go anywhere. So he's stuck there.
So he's still there. Wow.
Yeah, so we talk every day. Wow. And he tells you what happens. And earlier this week, the whole country was shut down for 4 days. Nobody was allowed to leave their house, their apartment. It's all restaurants, all stores were closed. And now the restaurant he used to go to every day for his meals, they can only do takeout. So,
well, I hope he stays safe.
I hope so too. Yeah. I hope I stay safe. I hope you stay safe. That's the weirdest thing. Every email, every phone conversation ends with, please stay safe. That's what I'm finding.
Yeah.
So, are you having to do anything about the vaccine?
Oh, yeah. It's a nonstop 7-day-a-week project at this point. So our biggest challenge right now is we have lots of people who want to be vaccinated, and we do not have nearly enough vaccine to vaccinate them yet. So we have to ask people to really be patient and to continue to wear a mask, wash their hands, and watch their distance from each other while we wait to get enough vaccine here to vaccinate everybody who would like to be vaccinated. But it's coming. And the end is in sight. It's just a little ways away yet, but it's on its way.
I spoke to my primary doctor at Penn Radnor, and he said they won't even have vaccine till February, March. So I figured next summer I'll be in line to get the vaccine.
Yeah, next summer should be a lot better than this past summer was. At least that's my hope.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what are you looking forward to under President Biden's 1,000-page plan for fighting the pandemic?
Well, first and foremost, I'm looking forward to much more coordinated response to this pandemic. It's really, from my perspective, been bungled by the federal government. We should have way more testing by now. The vaccine rollout could have been a lot smoother. So I'm just looking forward to just some, coordination. I'm also looking forward to an administration that bases their decisions on facts and on science and on data instead of political considerations. And I'm really looking forward to just a lowering of the rhetoric. The past administration spent part of every day trying to divide this country, trying to pit us against each other. And that's just not what our democracy is about. We need to learn to listen to each other and learn from each other, even when it's difficult. But that's what carries us forward, and that's what makes us stronger as a country. So I'm looking forward to a lot more of that.
What's your biggest accomplishment as chair of the Board of Commissioners?
Wow, that's a tough question.
I
know. There's been a couple, but I think overall, one of the most important things has been this county's response to this pandemic. I'm extremely proud of this work. When we realized that there wasn't a lot of help coming from the outside, we made sure we had adequate testing for the people in this county. We've worked closely with our hospitals and our schools and our faith community, just trying to make sure that everybody has information and that everyone is safe. And I'd like to think that we've done a pretty darn good job of it under incredibly difficult circumstances. So I'm really proud of that work.
We're proud of you, Dr. Val Arkoosh. And our guest today has been Dr. Val Arkoosh, an MD with a lot of roots in Philadelphia. And she is the chair of the Board of Commissioners of Montgomery County. So she's my chair. She's my friend too. And it's been a pleasure. And we hope to see everyone the next installment of Bonnie's Beat, coming to you through the magic of Vince Celli, Zoom, and mainline television. Stay safe, everybody. Please stay safe.